Welcome to Six Count. I'm your host, Xara Wilde, bringing you the jazz and swing scene from the Capital Region. Wayne, thank you so much for speaking with me. We're here at Halfmoon Diner.
It's exciting to get to speak to you, and I'm glad you want to do this podcast.
You teach, you're an educator, as well as playing piano all across the Capital Region, but what else is on the plate for you?
I still say mainly I'm a jazz pianist. I wanted to be a drummer, and my grandmother said something about in order to be a musician, you have to learn the piano first. It took me a long time to actually hear my instrument as a voice that was my way of contributing to art. But eventually, some of the artists I listened to, like Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock, when I first heard them, they were playing electric instruments. But then they decided to combine and do some acoustic things on piano. So. And then by that time I discovered Keith Jarrett and folks like that. And then the environment, there was a lot of live music going on. I enjoyed playing with Karen Allison. She lived in Kansas City for years, and now she's spent the last 15 years in New York City. And then I also played with Diane Shure, who's Grammy Award-winning vocalist. And then some of the show folks like Kristin Chenoweth I've worked with. So yeah, I did a lot of things like that over the years.
It sounds like you were really deeply involved in the Kansas City jazz scene.
Oh, yeah.
But I actually don't know really much at all about the scene. And I know you've been in the Capital Region for about 5 years, you were saying. But what can you share about the scene? What would you tell friends who've never been there?
They have probably 8 to 10 jazz clubs. The last 20 years have been sort of like a renaissance for Kansas City, and not only jazz but art. The art scene is very strong. Certain parts of town were occupied by artists who could live fairly cheaply, and then they could provide art, high-end art for restaurants and things like that. So they made their living. So then it became a magnet for people to come in. And then around the same time, this famous saxophonist who was with Art Blakey, his name's Bobby Watson, and he's from the same area, Kansas City, Kansas, that I'm from. And he moved back. He was brought in to become put into an emeritus position at the Conservatory of Music in Kansas City, Missouri. So he became a magnet for more of a New York style. And so now you get a lot of young people that are infusing the scene, so it keeps getting richer and richer.
And were there any of the jazz clubs that were more competitive or just had a really renowned name around town for being the place that you wanted to have a gig at?
The Blue Room is in 18th and Vine. 18th and Vine was famous because Count Basie got his start there, Charlie Parker got his start down there, Jay McShann was down there, but it closed in the 40s, late 40s and early 50s. It was all boarded up, and then about 25 years ago, this filmmaker Robert Altman made a movie called Kansas City, and he had what they call facades put on, so it looked like these clubs were actually happening, and they filmed a lot of the movie down there. But that sparked an idea amongst the city fathers to actually, let's do something. We have money, and so they created the Jazz Museum down there, and they also have a Negro Leagues Museum right next door to it, and then on the other side is the Blue Room, and then they all across the street is the Gem Theater. And there was a BET special filmed in 1999, and I was in the band, but they brought in George Duke, and they brought in George Benson, they brought in James Ingram, Danny Glover was there, Harry Belafonte was there. It was like almost every great African-American artist was down there, and I was only one of 3 local guys that play in the band. So it was cool.
Yeah, and to be around so much history too, it sounds like there's a lot of efforts going on to make sure that's preserved.
Exactly. It's one place you can go to where you're waiting for your flight in the airport, and there's a jazz quartet playing somewhere. So there's a lot of gigs down there, and I'm happy for them. Yeah, but I'm glad to be here too.
Yeah, so you moved up about 5 years ago,
Yes.
and what is gigging like now, and are you pretty happy with how it's been in comparison to Kansas City?
It was nice to not go into every gig where it's a lot of pressure, but a lot of fun. And I found some great players who actually were very open-minded about a lot of things. So I ask for a lot of things that other guys don't.
What do you mean by that?
Like style-wise, like for instance, I love a Brazilian tinge to some of my music.
Like a little bossa nova-esque?
Sambas and bossa novas, even get into some of the Cuban stuff, which is like montunos and things like that, and merengue. And I have a core group of guys that I think play really well, bring out a lot of stuff.
And you were talking about experimenting with different genres and styles and eras. Where do you think all of those influences come from for you?
One big influence is Miles Davis, because he played real lyrically and everything. He would just change his backgrounds. So like in the early 60s, it would be a little more traditional sounding, and then in the mid 60s, it was very cutting edge. And then in the 70s, it was electric. But he didn't change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He still sounded like Miles Davis.
We'll be right back with Six Count. I'm your host, Xara Wilde. Stay with us. We'd like to thank Giants of Jazz Radio, based in Lancashire, England, for airing this show. The station brings you the best in classic jazz, playing tracks from the 1940s through the 70s. You can support the station by visiting their website at giantsofjazzradio.co.uk and clicking donate. And now, back to the show.
You said you were a soundtrack composer. Can you share about those films, and did you have a favorite one or more memorable than the others?
Yeah, the first one was called 9th Street, and it's about a street in an African-American neighborhood in 1968 that basically had a riot happen in that town. So I set all my music in 1968, so it was Stax label, R&B, and I wrote things sounded like that, and then some of the other things sounded like Miles Davis or any of the Blue Note artists in the late 60s. I also there's a friend of mine who his name is John Little, and he was curator for the Bruce Lee estate. And I was also studying with Bruce Lee's protege, who's from Los Angeles, and I brought him in and several times and hosted him in seminars. So anyway, John Little called me and said, I have found the footage to one of Bruce Lee's movies that he didn't live to finish, and it was called Game of Death. And so long story short, they put together a 35-minute film based on all that footage, and knitted together 3 scenes, and it's in the middle of a documentary distributed by Warner Brothers called A Warrior's Journey. And so I did the music for all that, and it brought Hollywood in a way to Kansas City, and used symphony musicians, and we sounds like a small orchestra, which is what it was, and it was quite fun. Unfortunately, those things just kind of come. There was never a beam of light that said, "Oh, you're going to get to do this." It would have been nice, but I thought, well, this is my one chance, so we're not going to blow it. It's going to be good. So those are 2 things I did, and some other things I did for some local filmmakers, and it was fun while it lasted. And now I try to do soundtracks for myself. I have one that's I am just about finished filming. It's on the seasons. I have the first 3 seasons. I kind of have a real solid idea of what I'm going to do. And the last one, the fall one, I'm not quite sure, but I want it to be a little more jazz tinged. A little more melancholic because it's beautiful, but it's still a bunch of dead leaves. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like the end of one thing, and spring being the beginning. You know.
Well, if it's about the capital region, then winter is going to have to be really long.
Yes, but I gotta say, filming fall here the last 2 seasons has been a kick because it is quite a long fall as well. Because you can pretty much set your clock. September 1, it's fall somewhere up here.
Yeah, sort of the nice, warm, pleasant seasons kind of just go by the quickest, it seems.
Yeah, it does. It seems like it's about 3 weeks short either way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you'd want to share for the show or about you personally as a jazz musician?
Come out and support us and let us know what you think. And thank you for your show. And best of luck.
Well, Wayne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to 6 Count. I'm your host, Xara Wilde, and that was Wayne Hawkins. This show is listener supported. If you're interested in contributing to the project, you can find the link to our donations page on our website at 6count.simplecast.com. Your support is greatly appreciated. You can let me know what you thought of the episode or who I should speak to next by emailing me. I'm at 6countpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter at 6countpodcast.